what to do about the vaccine surplus. I'm joined by Suresh Acharya, professor of practice in the Robert H. Smith School of Business, University of Maryland. Suresh, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back, Bob. Always good to see you.
So interesting situation now. In the past, we've been talking about how to get the vaccine out to people, how to get enough doses of it produced. Now we're talking about we have too much of it. What is the current situation with regard to the availability of the COVID-19 vaccine against the number of people who are waiting or willing to take it?
Yeah, so there are many different studies. The one that Brookings has put out, I think, is the one that's probably the most realistic. And what they're projecting, Bob, is that by early fall, in the September-October timeframe, that it is very likely that we will have 500 million doses in surplus.
Surplus. Okay. Wow.
And so, given how the demand trends have really tapered, if you will, but the manufacturing continues to happen, we are going to be sitting on a lot of vaccines very soon.
What do you think? Is it a problem of overproduction? Is it a problem of distribution / logistics, or is the problem political and cultural in nature?
Well, I think when the administrations did place their orders, they were obviously playing it safe. So they knew they wanted to order more than they needed, and that's where we are now. Bob, I personally think that was a right thing to do. I think the demand side needs to continue to happen. We need to get more shots on arms with whatever incentive the various states are doing. But at the same time, we need to now have a very good strategy policy around the excess that will happen. What is abundantly clear, and I think fairly non-controversial, is that the United States ought to start to come up with a plan of distributing to give away the vaccines that it will start to have, some of which there's no intention of even using it. And so those are the AstraZeneca, for example.
Well, as I understand, I don't know exactly what the right numbers are, but it seems to me that I've heard that there's a pretty solid 20% or so of the population that has no intention of being vaccinated. Does that sound about right to you, that we're going to hit that wall? Or we already have?
So, the Biden administration's goal is to have by the 4th of July weekend, 70% of the population at least get one dose of the vaccine. Increasingly, it looks like we might fall a little short of that, but we're all keeping our fingers crossed. But Bob, what's important to note is contrasting that with the rest of the world, right? So if we are currently at around 45% fully vaccinated here, the rest of the world is around 6 or 7% fully vaccinated.
Shockingly low. In some cases, I've heard 3 to 4% in some countries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, 3/4 of the vaccines go to 10 countries. There are 30 countries in the world that have not received any vaccinations whatsoever. So,
Wow.
The have and the have-nots, the gap is very stark when it comes to this vaccine situation, at least for now.
Yeah. So what do? I mean, as you say, we need to start distributing, maybe exporting some of this, that we comfortably have enough to serve our own people. What is required there? That's a political effort, a logistics effort, a corporate effort, a government effort. What kind of effort is it?
Yeah, Bob, and I'm a professor, and there's A, B, C, D, and I always give E, which is all of the above. In this case, I think it's all of the above, right? So, first of all, a lot of the vaccines have been produced under the Defense Production Act, and there are limitations around what one can and cannot do, in terms of the products and the supplies under that act. So that is more administrative, and I think those can be resolved, right? The second is around distribution. Well, as you know, the mRNA, the variety, that's the Pfizer and the Moderna, have very stringent cold chain requirements. And so is it just a matter of packing it up and shipping it to these various countries? The answer is, what is the guarantee that it will not perish, that it will not spoil in these various countries, right? So, in that sense, there's a lot of advocacy around shouldn't these be produced closer to where they will be consumed. And if you recall, this is one of the reasons why there was a whole discussion around the waiving of the patent requirement. And so, yeah, and one can discuss either way. This is good or bad. Is this setting the wrong precedents? But in any case, what that does is there are certain types of vaccinations, Johnson Johnson in particular, that is probably the one that is the likelier one to make it overseas,
Because it's a single dose,
because it's a
and
single dose.
because the
And
temperature controls are not as strict.
exactly, both of those, right?
Yeah.
So both of those. So that's on that. The other thing, of course, that the United States can do, and I'm sure it will start to do, is when it did its contract. A lot of the contracts have the United States as the first buyer, if you will, or receiver of the vaccines. There's nothing preventing the United States to now opt out to say, okay, can I be 6 or 7 or 8 on the line instead, and let's start to send it to others, right? So on that, Bob, I think the Biden administration has already taken some actions. A few days ago, it announced that it will make 80 million doses by the end of June available to the rest of the world. There's an organization called COVAX, part of a WHO, that oversees the distribution of the vaccines to South America, Africa, and parts of Asia. So 75% of that is intended to go there. And then it is keeping the remaining 25% for countries that
So
collateral.
so we would, if we make those available, that would be vaccines that are on our shores already, that would actually be exported and distributed, as
Correct.
opposed to having them produced somewhere else.
That is correct.
So there is a distribution challenge, a logistics challenge there. But as you say, we don't know exactly which vaccines that would be, although J&J might make the most sense.
Right.
I've also heard that UNICEF is playing a large role, or hoping to play a large role, in distributing billions of doses of the vaccine. Are they in the picture as well? Do you know?
So I believe that the UN organization that's most talked about is actually COVAX. So I'm
That is a
assuming.
UN organization. I see.
Exactly. So
Okay.
COVAX probably has ties with they obviously have ties with the WHO. They probably have ties with UNICEF as well. And COVAX is the organization that is overseeing the equitable distribution of the vaccines.
I suppose I don't know if it makes sense to set up some kind of a national reserve of the vaccine. Number one, because you don't know what type of disease is going to come along down the pike. Number two, the storage considerations are pretty strict. So is that the case? Is it not feasible to store some of this here in the United States as a reserve, a strategic type of reserve?
Absolutely, Bob. And in fact, some of the folks who are, let's just play it safe, way of thinking, are actually saying exactly what you said, which is, look, we don't know if this will work against all the variants. There are many variants happening even as we speak.
Right.
Let's make sure that we don't dole out everything that we have and find ourselves back in the same unenviable position. And so those are the folks who say, let's make sure that we hold back a good number. And so there are arguments on both sides of that. The one aspect of the vaccination that we've always talked about, the cold chain, the temperature requirements, etc. Remember, this is a perishable item. It doesn't stay there for forever. The Moderna one can be frozen, so it has a shelf life that's a little longer than the Pfizer, but they all have shelf lives. And even as we speak, it is very likely in the coming weeks that there will be vaccines in the United States that will go to waste.
Oh, what a shame. Any lessons for the future in terms of when next we set out to produce huge amounts of vaccine for the next big thing coming along, ways to do it differently?
Well, I think what has happened is probably what everyone thought would happen. That obviously, the United States being the one that put in the most investment, R&D wise or otherwise, would be the one to receive it first, followed by Europe. Obviously, Canada, Japan, Australia, etc. So I think everyone expected this to play out. If there are lessons, I think it is more around having regional manufacturers as well.
Mhm.
India did play a role. India was supposed to be the world's supplier of vaccines until they went down with their own COVID
Right.
problems, as
And
you
didn't
know.
have access to certain raw materials that they needed to import in order to make the vaccine.
That
Thanks in part to us, I understand. But
that is correct, and some of that is being addressed. But I think the takeaway is South Africa, maybe Brazil and India, and I think this needs to be a regional thing,
yeah,
more than it has been. And so that would be the primary learning, at least in my mind, from a supply chain perspective.
well, let's hope we do all of the above. That's why I hate multiple choice tests. That little trap at the very end, but that is the truth. It sounds like what you're saying, and those are very valuable insights, Suresh Acharya, the University of Maryland. Always good to speak with you on this and any other topics. Thank you for joining me once again. Really appreciate your time.
Sure thing, Bob. Thank you very much.